everyone, Xander Gaming coming at y'all with another video. And in today's video, we are going to be doing the market watch for the super rare cards in the Union Arena trading card game. I try to do these every, month and a half, 2 months or so. I've really been trying to give the Sword Art Online cards a little bit more time to cool down, but they are not doing it. I think the set is just really, really popular. There are, a plethora of really strong decks that you can play out of it, and I think with that case, that is why some of these cards maybe aren't going down as much as I thought they would. But with that out of the way, you may see a lot more of their cards in the top 10 because it is the most recent set, but I have been doing, around 2 weeks or so. And I want to kind of keep that the standard, and I think maybe that'll show us just how popular some of the sets are, depending on like what their status is and the price of the cards when they come out. But the #1 most expensive base rarity super rare is still the king of all the super rares, the Gawain from the Code Geass Elusia the Rebellion set. This card stays being the most expensive base super rare in the game. This listing here, $16 with shipping included. The market price just saying around $16.71. And like I said a long time ago, if you could get this card around like the first time I ever listed this at $10 when I did these videos, I think that still stands well going, 3 months after this set has come out. 4 months even maybe. I can't recall how long that this has been out, but it stays being the one super rare that stands the test of time, being at $16, and it is the most expensive super rare in the card game at the moment. And I think that this has a lot to do with just how important this card is for the deck and how many people are playing this deck, and then that means that this supply of this card is in high demand. It always has a lot of sellings and a lot of switching around, so people are playing the deck, and you have to run 4 of. No matter what your list is, you're running 4 of this Gawain, and you always probably will. So I think that that's why this continues to be, the most expensive super rare in the game. And it is really just such a generically good card. It's very versatile, very flexible in the ways that you can play and use and get a lot of value out of this card. But Gawain is the #1 most expensive super rare. Coming up in second place is a new card to the list, and it is the Asuna from the new Sword Art Online set. Yes, I know this is a newer card, so it probably has a lot to do with its sales. But if you look through the last month, we do have some, pretty decent data of about, almost 3 weeks now of sales for this card. And I know that they have, went down as low as $10, but they are back up to $16. And I think it's because a lot of people are realizing that this Asuna is the one card out of all the raids in the deck that you always run at a 4 of, because you need to see your Asunas to do your full combo in the blue Sword Art Online deck. And she is just really, really important because she can also be played in the other blue version of the deck. And I think that people who don't want to play the maybe as mainstream tier 1 kind of blue deck also uses this Asuna in that other deck. And I think that has to do with why this card also has a value, because it keeps such a high value because it's in 2 of the blue decks, right? This deck is so strong. I think it is one of the, 6 best decks in the game at the moment. Top 10 decks. It's up there. It's one of the best decks in format. I always do like a best in format deck listing, top 10. And this deck is definitely going to be up there for quite some time. And it's just such a good card. It is sitting at around, $16, just under what the Gawain is sitting at. I do expect this one to fall over time a little bit, but I think that if you get this card, around $15, you won't regret doing it if you do get a lot of time played with this deck, which I think you will, because this deck will stay good for quite, some time in the foreseeable future. And I do think it is a good card to sit. I think it may settle around, $12 is what I would have to say. So since Asuna is the second most expensive, that means that she took a spot from my boy Kurapika. He is still sitting in third, right? He's always sitting around like the top 3 most expensive super rares, because this is one of the few super rare cards that you can get out of the Hunter x Hunter set that is worth some money. So a lot of people aren't opening up as many of these boxes anymore, because really this guy is the chase card, you could say, the chase super rare, the only super rare in the set I think that is actually worth over $2 or $3. And it's because Kurapika still see the people who love Kurapika stay on Kurapika, and I am myself a Kurapika stan. I love Kurapika, and I'm going to try to just keep playing with him as much as I can. I do feel like he's fallen a little bit out of favor at the moment, because we do have the new Sword Art Online green deck, and I do think it is just a little bit more of a consistent version of Kurapika, where I do think that Kurapika has a little bit better ways of closing out the game, keeping the impact, but it goes to show you will see more and more of the green Sword Art Online deck, the GGO topping, but Kurapika is sitting at around $12 market value. The most recent sale was about $11. So if you can get this guy, anywhere between $10, it's not a bad pickup. He is, not getting any support in set 2. So this is still going to be the premier card for the deck that you're going to focus everything around. And it's really, really strong. And I think the stats and the versatility of him, getting snipe or tapping down one of your opponent's characters is, really, really strong. And the 5k BP body, he does take the 7 energy, which is a little unfortunate, but it is good to see that Kurapika's stocks are not going anywhere. The fourth card on the list is going to be the Nezuko. So this Nezuko, I think, sits in the same spot as the Asuna does from her deck. And both of these decks do a lot of very similar things where you're moving things from your front line and your energy line up and down to get in extra swings. And I do think that the Nezuko fills that same spot as the Asuna does for her deck. Now, granted, maybe not as impactful with the impact and all this stuff. She's a little bit weaker, but a little bit lower to the ground, right? That deck is a little lower to the ground than the blue SAO deck is, but they sit in the kind of the same aspect of the game of being a very aggressive aggro deck. And the Nezuko is definitely a card you run at a 4 of, and that is why she holds such a high value, being in one of the premier aggro decks, and her market price is around $12. I think this is a fair price for Nezuko. I don't see her really going anywhere lower than that. Staying between a $10 and $15 card is what I expect out of Nezuko, but she is, such a good card, and it's always the card that you need to see. You find plenty of Tanjiros because you have multiple Tanjiro Ray targets, and, those people, everyone does their list a little different with, 3 of each or maybe 4 and 4. Like, that changes, but the Nezuko stays a solid at a 4 of, and it's nice to see her sitting at that market price of just over $12. Coming in 5th place is our Xenon. So we do know that Xenon is, a really important part, and I do want to touch on both of these coming up together. We do have the Xenon and the Kirito, staying pretty close together, but the Xenon is edging out the Kirito from the blue set. This Xenon is so important. It is the main card of the deck, even though the Kirito level 7, the 7 energy raid is part of what makes the deck really go for the big plays. This Xenon is what makes the deck so consistent. Being able to scry the 2 cards on top of your deck and place them how you want helps the deck be so consistent. And I do think that this is the main difference that this deck has that the Kurapika deck does not have, is another raid target that helps supplement what you want to do at the end of the game. And getting to it, she is just above $11, which I think is fair for a newer card that came out. It is going to be a really strong card, and this deck actually gets more support. So I think that if you get this for anything under this or around it, even if you want to pray, say there's people at your card shop holding on these cards and they don't want to come off of them at the market price, I wouldn't feel bad if, like, offer him $15. If you spend $15 to get all your Xenons now, before the deck gets even more support, you won't regret it later, because the deck is only going to get better, and this Xenon is only going to get more expensive. A forecast for me is I think that this will end up being the second most expensive rare, super rare in the game. Once that second set comes out, I think it will be pushing the Gawain as one of the premier cards that you want to get, because it is so good. She is so important for the deck, and she is sitting at just above $11 market price. Alright, coming on to the Kirito, we are getting at the 6th most expensive super rare, and it is the blue Kirito from the new SAO set. Like I said, we are going to see a lot of Sword Art Online cards on this because it is the most recent set, but I always do this around the time, like 2 or 3 weeks after releases, to give it some time, and these cards are staying hot because I do think that this is such a popular IP, but the decks are also really, really strong, so it's not to be negated that the decks aren't strong and they're just popular. They're both. They're popular and they're really strong decks, and the Kirito is sitting at about $10.50 is the market price for it. We have seen, a lot of sales for it. There's 129 listings. So you could see the price drop maybe a little bit. Some people trying to come off some of these listings here, but it's a strong card. It is one of the most important cards in the deck. I think that the reason this doesn't hold as much value as the Asuna does is because I have seen that this 5 drop, some people only put 3 to 4 copies. I've even seen some people put 2. I think that's wrong. I think at least 3 or 4 is a minimum, and it being such an important card to let you get all your plays every time, once per turn, letting you do your switch shenanigans. It is such a really important, awesome card, and it is just above $10. Now, it has been, I think, the first time we've not seen Yuji in the top 5. He is bringing up, what, this is 7th place now, the 7th most expensive super rare in the game, and he is still, there are some low listings at $9.50 for a lightly played, but you can go down here in the near mint, with shipping is going to be costing you about $10, and that is what the market price is saying, about $10.61, but you can find some listings around $10, so we'll say $10, $10.50, whatever, $10.60, whatever you want to say. This card is below $11. It is a really, really good card. I think that if you've been waiting to pick up your Yujis, now is the time. Pick up this card now. Don't wait for, people to, go back to playing their Blue JJK decks. I do think that Blue JJK has seen a little bit drop in play, only because some people have been wanting to get their hands on these new Sword Art Online cards, but they are going to go back to this deck because I do still believe that this is the best deck that we have in the game at the moment. It is still one of the most consistent decks that offers, draw power, removal, scaling. It does it all. This deck is not going anywhere, and I do think it is still the most expensive deck, or the most explosive, powerful deck in the game, and the most consistent deck, and I think that you should pick these Yujis up. Now, there are still a lot of listings, so maybe it will drop, but I think if you get your playset of these for $10 each, you can't feel bad about that because you know you're going to be playing one of the best decks in the game. Now, we do have our other green boy coming up in 8th place, and it is going to be the Air Cavalry. The Lancelot for the Suzaku deck. This guy is so strong. It is a game finisher, and it is such a powerful card. And we do see a big drop-off from the Yuji to these cards, right? I do think that there is a separate tier for those top 7 super rares, and then the drop-off from, like, there on the second tier of cards. There are a lot of cards that are between the $6 and $4 range, whereas there's not a ton of cards that are above that $8 plus, right? There's a lot of cards that are, $6, $7 to like $4 range of all the super rares, whereas those 7 cards beforehand are definitely in a class of their own in value anyways, right? But the market value is $6.69. Nice for this card. We do have some low listings here with shipping included, but we can say around a $6.50 to $7 card for your Lancelots. And I do think that this stock is up from the last time I think we brought him up, and he was around $4. And I think it's because Lancelot has a good matchup into the green One Punch Man deck, and as well, it has a decent matchup into some of these rush decks, right? Putting a 5k Lancelot on the board before these rush decks, if they do start off slow, they have a lot of problems getting over the 5k body. So I think Lancelot is in a good spot to be in this middle ground between all the decks that are people playing that are rush, and all these build-up One Punch Man decks that people are playing, and the Lancelot comes in a nice middle spot to take out a lot of those decks, and that is why the market for it has been pretty decent over the last month, staying at about $6.69, a good $7. Now, bringing up 9th place is going to be Maki, and the reason that this card stays in the top 10 is because it is a very versatile card. No matter how you play Blue JJK, almost every list runs 4 of these Makis because it is a great, easy way for you to feel your sideline, to get your effects, to, scale into those really strong Sukuna plays. This card is so versatile, really, really powerful. It's not going anywhere, and that's why it holds this market value at about $5.39. $5 is a good price to get this card. I think that, if you want to pick up your Makis now, you can. She does fluctuate a little bit compared to some of the other cards, but it really is a really, really good card. Just seeing some recently sold listings at around this price range, right? So a lot of time of no sales of this card because a lot of people were not trying to build the Blue JJK. A lot of people already had it built up, and I think we will see some movement going in the future as a lot of players look to pick back up some of the Blue JJK stuff. Coming in 10th place is going to be our Ichigo. Now, this is the super pre-release version of the card, so that should not have popped up on here. So that is very interesting. Maybe I messed up the filters on it to be that way. So it's not Ichigo, it's gonna be Rukia here. Sorry, I just noticed that was super release, but Rukia is bringing up 10th place as the 10th most expensive super rare in the game. And I'm glad I picked up some of my copies because I do think that the support that the deck gets with that new Rukia coming out, and the we're getting some other purple cards that we didn't have from the first set that will help, if you want to focus around Rukia a little bit better. And it is really cool to see, a lot of people just don't have a lot of access to the Bleach and Hunter x Hunter decks, so I do think that this is the time in the market where the older sets in the game will start to go up in value a little bit, mainly because there's not a lot of that same product out there. And then with this game, that is one thing I look forward to in the future, to see like how much original sets will hold their weight in value over time, the long haul, right? Because if a new set comes out that supports something from the first set 6 months in the future, now people have to look to pick up those old sets. And I do think that some people are picking up the Rukias, which you can see here. It did used to be, just a couple months ago, a $3 to $4 card, and now slowly going up to be almost a $6 card, sitting at $5.38, about $5.50 average for this card. Is not bad. But that is the 10 most expensive super rares in the game. Were there any of these cards that you thought missed out on? One I was surprised was to see the Kirito, the new Kirito, holding a market price value at a $4.45. I do think that this card is worth picking up for sure if you're wanting to get into the game, as well as the Kings for the green One Punch Man deck. There are so many strong, amazing decks in the UnionArena trading card game, but those are just the 10 most expensive super rares in the game at the moment. Please let me know what you guys want to see in the future regarding, market watches. Do you want to see alt arts coming up next? I have been getting a lot of good feedback over the super rares, but that is it for this video. Please leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate everyone hanging out with me today. Peace.